Good afternoon and welcome to the 31st Annual Martin Luther King Day celebration hosted by the Seattle Community College District. My name is Vivian Phillips and it is an honor, an absolute honor to be here today as your MC. I have always wanted to do this. The Community College District has hosted this celebration, and we come here to honor the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King. We also come to reignite our commitment to his dream, to remember that Dr. King was not just a dreamer, he was a man who did, and we all have the ability to do. And this is an opportunity for us to look deep into our hearts, into our souls, and be connected with that dream and the legacy. We begin this morning, or this afternoon now, by welcoming our host, the senior pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church, the Reverend Dr. Leslie D. Braxton. Please welcome Reverend Braxton.
I admit I came here this morning tired because I rose very early so that I could do a King Day program at my high school alma mater, Lincoln High School, Tacoma, Washington. And I drug in here, having driven by grace and not by law on the way back here. And God allowed me to bypass all of your colleagues in getting back here. But I feel better now because Vivian Phillips just said that she referred to me as the presiding elder, which we don't have in the Baptist church, which makes me the first ever Baptist presiding elder. So I congratulate you. With that, you're all welcome here at Mount Zion Baptist Church, where all of God's people from all of God's places are welcome here all the time. Would you stand with me, one and all, as we have a moment of memorial, silence and prayer on behalf of the tsunami victims, and those who are victims having lost loved ones, and the relief workers, and all the people of conscience and goodwill all over the world working together to bring relief to this unparalleled and unequaled human tragedy. Take the hand of the person next to you. Moments like this remind us that we are all in this thing of life together. God, hear the prayers of your people in every place. God, hear the prayers of the children looking for parents, and the prayers of parents looking for children, prayers of husbands looking for wives, prayers of kinfolk looking for family. Catch every tear that falls from the eyes of those who have found their loved ones and found them dead. Lord, we pray that you would collect their tears in the wings of angels and store them in the vaults of eternity, so that in that day of judgment when they stand before you, those angels can go to those vaults and take those same tears and enter them into judgment, that these are they who have come through great trials and tribulations and washed white their robes in the blood of the Lamb. God, move with compassion all over this world to these and all other victims, those who suffer in silence and those who cry aloud. God, have mercy, and use us to be the fingers on your hand to touch them and right what is wrong and heal what is hurting. Be present here in this place so that the memory of Martin King might merely remind us of the way we ought all to live before you and among each other. In your name, amen. Amen.
Thank you. I also have to just acknowledge this little tiny drummer over here. Yay. He played drums on Lift Every Voice. I don't know if you all noticed that or not, but go ahead there. Throughout his life, Dr. King was consistent in his belief that a good education leads to a better life. And every year, the Seattle Community Colleges touch lives of 55,000 students. And they also touch our lives by presenting this program in honor of Dr. King. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce someone who I have called my brother for as many years as I can remember. And many of you know him and have known him, and it is absolutely an honor to introduce to you today Chancellor. He corrected me. I called him President last week, and he told me, no, I'm sorry. I am the Chancellor of the Seattle Community Colleges, Dr. Charles H. Mitchell.
Thank you. As we've noted with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he believed in the power of education to transform lives, and not only individual lives, but the life of a community. And when Dr. King spoke to a class of high school students, he told them, "My young friends, doors are opening to you, doors of opportunities that were not there for your mothers and your fathers." It is a privilege for me to serve as the Seattle Community, at the Seattle Community Colleges, and especially to work to keep those doors open for our youth so that they can achieve their dreams. One of the remarkable aspects of this program is the presence of our civic leaders who make time to attend and share their greetings with us. And so at this time, I would like to ask our Board of Trustee member, Tom Malone, to come forward and introduce them for us. Tom?
Thank you, Chancellor Mitchell. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to see all of you here. It is indeed an honor to share this program with our elected and appointed leaders. Seattle Mayor Greg Nichols is with us today. Mayor Nichols and his wife Sharon have attended this celebration for many years, and we want to say thank you. Please welcome Seattle Mayor Greg Nichols.
Good afternoon. I wanted to read a short passage from the Seattle Times of about a month ago. Human rights advocate Elliot Noble Cowden was tireless and courageous when it came up to standing up for what he thought was right. Mr. Cowden battled for passage of the Fair Housing Act, a pivotal part of the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1968, passed shortly after the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Like King, Mr. Cowden sought inclusion and equality. He testified before the United States Commission on Civil Rights about the legislation and met with President Lyndon Johnson about the matter. He served more than 7 years on the Seattle Human Rights Commission, formed by Mayor Gordon Clinton in 1963. Appointed by Clinton when the group was established, Mr. Cowden became chairman of the commission in 1970. He was working in real estate when he joined the commission, said his daughter, Virginia Stimpson. He battled housing discrimination even in the face of losing business and risking his children's education funds. He started talking about the insidious ways that people prevented, in particular, African Americans from moving into West Seattle, she said. That's what he was asked to do, and that's why he was asked to testify before Congress. Mr. Cowden was inspired by King's speeches, she added. He picked up on a biblical or a moral mandate to do something, and so he made himself available. Stimpson remembered that her mother was worried about their 3 children who were all about to enter college. My dad said, "We really don't have a choice. This is what we need to do." Elliot Cowden died last month at age 93, having served a full and complete life, and one which I think showed us great courage in his actions as a relatively young man. I wanted to share with you that fast forwarding to yesterday, we announced 48 grants to community groups who are working on racial and social justice projects in neighborhoods around the city. 48 organizations. 48 organizations, volunteers and staff who are working hard to find a path to race and social justice. Dr. King inspired us during his life. He inspired us at the time of his death. And 37 years later, he continues to inspire us to find a path from the darkness to the light. And so it is my great pleasure and honor as mayor of the city of Seattle to proclaim January 14th, 2005 to be Seattle Community College's 31st annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Day, and January 17th, 2005 to be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Seattle. And I encourage all of our fellow citizens to join me in honoring this great man and the hundreds and thousands of people he has inspired to greatness. Thank you, and may God bless each of you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And another person who joins us virtually every year is our King County Executive, Ron Sims.
Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Braxton, it is great to bring you greetings from Martin Luther King County, Washington.
All right.
Today we celebrate the 76th birthday of Dr. King, but I want to go down a memory lane a little bit. When I was young, and I didn't have that period in my life, I came to the National Baptist Convention of the state of Washington, and there was a young new minister at Mount Zion Baptist Church, and it wasn't in this building. It used to be on another part of the property, an older brick building, and they brought this young, dynamic person in named Reverend Dr. Samuel Barry Mckinney. And we had heard about Dr. Mckinney in Spokane, and all of us as young wanted to meet and see who this person was. And we all came over because he had decided to conduct a march from Mount Zion to Westlake to begin to raise really substantial issues about what was going on in Seattle, Washington. We wanted to make a change, whether it was for fair housing laws or non-discrimination, equality in employment, a whole series of educational issues. I'll never forget that march. But I want to talk about marching and celebrations. We also saw recently the indictment of an individual who led the charge to murder 3 young men who denied people so that they could deny people the opportunity to vote. But in the state of Washington, this last election, only 63% of the people who could vote voted. And so they, in fact, those people who don't vote, empower those people who murdered those young men. You know, it is time to move past celebration and into action. Because to have celebrations and to talk is a clanging bell. My son's studying for the SATs, and the other day he had to memorize the word cacophony, which simply means a lot of bad noise. So celebrations where there is no outcome is a lot of bad noise. We have to reduce in this state, in this county, in this country, the disparity in health care between people of color and people. There's a disparity between white and black, between white and Native American, between white and Hispanic Latino, in the delivery of something as intimate as health care. No more celebrations, end it. It is important that we don't. Dr. King went to Morehouse University, the Harvard University of historic black colleges and universities, at age 16. At age 16. So it's not can't celebrate his life and ignore the requirements to develop intellect. And so it's not just that we have to have excellent schools. We have to have the capacity to mold and shape excellence within those students, within those schools. So I hope that we will continue to have celebrations, but I hope that we will endeavor to have successes every single day to move the ball forward. For in this century, this rapidly changing, fast-paced century, if you are left behind, you are left behind for a lifetime. That's right. So no more talk, no more celebrations. It is time for extraordinary effort and passion to move the ball forward. So on behalf of all of the citizens of this extraordinary county, and I get to be the county executive of it, we too have declared this Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Month in King County. And may we with passion make a difference.
As we all know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a powerful writer and speaker. His work continues to inspire students the world over. And today we're going to hear the words of Dr. King in a special presentation. Please welcome the 5th grade class from Bryant Elementary School.
They were signing a promissory note to which every
pleasure for me to introduce our keynote speaker today, William Bell. And if you don't yet know William Bell, it's because he's kind of new to our town. And he came to Seattle about last summer around July to take up the good work of the Casey Family Foundation. For those who do not know the work of the Casey Foundation, its mission is to serve foster children, youth, and families. In fact, William Bell has spent most of his career protecting children. He came to Seattle from the city of New York, where he has been serving as Commissioner for Children's Services. He was responsible for the child welfare services from everything from foster care and child protection to Head Start and daycare. That's just the tip of the iceberg. William Bell has a depth of more than 30 years of experience in the human services field. Among other accomplishments, he was former director for Miracle Makers, the largest minority-owned nonprofit child and family service organization in the city of New York. He has also worked extensively in community development and consultant work in both New York and Memphis, Tennessee. He has been honored repeatedly over the years, and he is well known across the country because of his work on boards, commissions, and committees that address the needs of families and children. He was recently named the Pew Commission on Children in Foster Care. Before I met William Bell, I had heard from Sister Constance Rice and others in our community about the outstanding speech he made to the Congressional Black Caucus last September. So we are pleased that he is addressing us today. I know that Seattle's a long way from his native Mississippi, as well as New York, but I know that you will all join me to give him a good Seattle welcome, William Bell. Thank you.
It is an honor for me to be here with you today to offer a few words in celebration of the life of one of America's greatest citizens, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King's life and his work holds special significance for me, as I am a product of the changes that he sought to bring about in the great state of Mississippi and throughout the Deep South. And it is an honor for me to join with you today to celebrate his life. But as I start these remarks, I want to just open them with a simple statement. Dr. King was a man. Now, some of you may respond to that simplicity by questioning whether or not it has any degree of irreverence for the legacy of Dr. King, or you may respond to it by simply saying and nodding your head, yes, I know he was a man, but he was a man who had something that others did not have. He had something that we don't have today. Well, I hope that my words this afternoon will challenge each of you to see the humanity of Dr. King. That was the essence of who he was. But I hope that my words will also challenge you to look within yourself and see a similar humanity residing within you. You see, by saying that Dr. King was a man, I'm simply drawing attention to the fact that he was a son. I'm drawing attention to the fact that he was a husband, that Martin Luther King Jr. was a father, and that he was a brother, he was a friend, he was a preacher, and he was a teacher, and he had many other roles of humanness, just like all of us in this room today. He loved to laugh. He loved taking his children to amusement parks, and he also loved music. One of his favorite songs was, "If I Can Help Somebody." Those words, if I can help somebody as I travel along, then my living would not be in vain. Those words seem to embody his life. And if you look through his speeches and his sermons, you will find many reference to other songs such as "His Troops Are Marching On," songs such as "We Shall Overcome," or "Amazing Grace." He talked about amazing grace after leaving a visit to a prison where he went to pray for people who were on death row. And he said as those doors closed behind him as he walked out, that he could not help but to think that but for the grace of God, there go I. And he said it touched him so deeply that he had to think about the words of Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Hallelujah. If you don't know yet, I'm also a preacher. That saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. You see, I can imagine that these songs pushed him farther and farther down the road that he was his life, the road that he knew that he must travel, a life that changed the world. It's amazing when you think about 13 years out of one man's life changed the world. 13 years. And the world has never been the same. Not just Mississippi hasn't been the same, or not just Alabama or Georgia hasn't been the same. The entire world has not been the same because of those 13 years in history. Let me pause for a second and ask you a couple of questions. How is this world different because of the last 13 years of your life? And how will this world be different because of the next 13 years of your life? And then I would ask you to look within yourself and ask yourself whether or not there's a song burning down inside of you that speaks to the journey that you must travel. You see, I titled this talk today, All God's Children Got a Song. All God's children got a song. And you see, when I get to heaven, I'm going to sing my song. I'm going to sing all over God's heaven. And it's something when you realize that someday you're going to be all right, it helps you to deal with not being all right today. But we need to get to a place where we can make it all right before we get to heaven. We have too many children who can't wait until they get to heaven to be all right. You see, I ask myself the question, what songs are some of God's children singing? What songs were those 4 little girls singing when that Alabama church was bombed? What song was Emmett Till singing when he was being lynched? And what songs were the bombers singing because they were God's children too? And what songs was the lynch mob singing as they were hanging that young boy from a tree? And then I pause for a second and I ask myself, what songs are the more than 550,000 children in foster care all across this country singing today? What songs are the approximately 18,000 children who are in foster care right here in the state of Washington singing today? What songs can we hear them sing? What songs are the nearly 60,000 children who were reported abused or neglected in the state of Washington last year singing? And nearly 10,000 of them right here in Martin Luther King County. What songs are they singing, and can we hear them? It seems like I can hear some of them singing a song that says it's been over 50 years since Brown versus the Board of Education, and it still feels like separate but equal to me. I can hear some of them singing a song asking, who is going to speak for me? Who is going to stand up for me? My mother can't do it. My father can't do it. Who is going to speak for me? And you see, that voice is calling on us to keep Dr. King's dream alive for them. In that I have a dream speech, Dr. King said that I have a dream that my 4 children, and I put emphasis on my 4 children will one day live in a world where they are not judged by the color of their skin. I ask you, who is dreaming that dream for these children? When I look at two of the greatest challenges facing children in foster care in this country today, I see that it is the overrepresentation of children of color in the foster care system and the underrepresentation of children of color who were former foster kids in our higher education system. And at any level that you can measure, we find that children of African American, Latino, and Native American backgrounds are overrepresented in the child welfare system and overrepresented in negative life outcomes. A recent study talked about that 20,000 children who emancipate from the foster care system every single year. And you may not know it, but right here in the state of Washington, 300 children leave foster care every year solely on the basis that they are too old to stay there. And some 2 years after that, more than 50% have not yet finished high school. More than 33% have been homeless or are homeless at that time. And approximately 28% of the young men and 10% of the young women are either incarcerated or have had some run-in with the law. All God's children got a soul. Can you hear? Just listen. Can you hear? It's a song that says, up above my head, I hear music in the air. Can you hear the music that they're playing? Casey Family Programs believes that one of the most potent weapons that we can employ to change the outcomes for these young people is to fight to make sure that every one of these young people knows that it is possible to get a college education, that it is affordable for them to get a college education, and that it is achievable for them to get a college education. And any one of those three missing from the equation, and we don't get where we need to be. Because if it's possible but not affordable or achievable, then why does it matter? We believe that there are a number of reasons to be optimistic about the 21st century. I don't want you to think that I came here to preach gloom and doom to you. But I did come to raise your consciousness and to raise your awareness and to hopefully raise your level of action. Because we need to remove the obstacles that are making it difficult for these young people to climb to success in adulthood. And I want you to understand that all of these imbalances did not begin in foster care. And nor can all of them be attributed to the fact that they were in foster care. But that being said, children from the foster care system are at a greater disadvantage than their counterparts who were not in foster care. And why is this important? Well, let me tell you. In between 1980 and the year 2000, when an enormous amount of wealth was being generated in this country, the number of children in foster care more than nearly doubled from approximately 300,000 children to approximately 550,000 children. And more startling than just simply that the numbers increased is the demographics associated with those numbers. That in that same time period, that in 1982, just 23 years ago, 52% of the children in foster care in this country were white. In that 20-year period that I just referred to, though black children represent only about 12% of the children in the country, they skyrocketed to 42% of the children in foster care. And when you combine black and Latino children, they represented about 56% of the children in foster care. 23 years ago, 52% white. Today, 56% black and Latino. In the state of South Dakota, 65% of the children in foster care in that state are Native American. The Native American population in that state doesn't even reach 20%. It's far less than that. I come to encourage you to consider that we need to change the song that our children are singing. We need to help write the music for them to sing. Because right now we have too many of our young people who cannot hear the music. The only music that can play in their heads is the blues. And coming from Mississippi, I know a little bit about the Delta blues. And it always has a sad storyline to it. My woman done left me, but I'm still paying for it. My husband doesn't pay the bills, but he still wants to come home. Some storyline in there. And our children are singing too much of the blues. And when they reach adulthood, too many of them are singing the blues in prisons. A study recently showed that African American men between 20 and 29, 9.7% of them are in prison. And that for Latinos is 2.9% for that same population, and for whites, 1.1%. What's wrong with that picture? 2/3 of those who use crack are white and Latino, but the majority of those who are convicted are African American. African Americans get HIV and AIDS more than 7 times as often as whites, and infant mortality is twice that of the white population, and homelessness more than 3 times that of the white population. Let me pause for a second, because I believe in saying what drops into my spirit. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not criticizing white people. I'm talking about the conditions that are impacting on African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans. And I ask you to think for a second. Most of us in this room probably represent those who have gotten some measure of success in your life. And so when you think about how you got here, you probably look around and say, well, my family helped me, or my community rallied around me and supported me and brought me up, or somebody touched me and allowed me to be able to be where I am right now. But I ask you a question. Take a step back. And imagine for a second where you might be today, that if at one point there was a knock at midnight on your door and a social worker came in and you were taken away and all of your belongings were either put in a garbage bag or in a duffel bag, and you were ushered off and placed in a strange neighborhood and placed in a strange home. And then the 3 years that followed, you were moved to 3 different homes. Imagine for 1 second what your life would look like today if that were interjected in your history. And imagine the song that you would be singing at this point in time. We need to find some answers. And in finding answers, we've got to look together. Because I think that when you think about what we're looking for, we're all looking for the same thing. Casey Family Programs is not looking for anything different than the pastor's looking for, than Dr. Mckinney's looking for. We're looking for a system that when children have to enter, that they enter into a system that is going to keep them safe. We're looking for a system that when kids have to go into it, they're going to be nurtured and brought to adulthood so that they could be stable, productive members of this society. That's what we're looking for. But I think that we've gotten off on the wrong track, because I think we spend a little bit too much time blaming the existing system for the problems that we have. We're calling the child protective system the enemy of our community. Well, the enemy of our community is lack of involvement. The enemy of our community is our failure to get engaged in the decision-making process and to be supportive of the people who must make judgments about our children. There's a tribe in Africa, the Maasai tribe, that greets each other every single day with one greeting: Kasarian Injera. And Kasarian Injera is a question: how are the children? And the tribal response to that greeting is Sapati Injera. All the children are well. And what that tribe has come to recognize is, even if they are tribal members who would never have children, they have come to recognize that if all of our children are not well, then we cannot be well. So I ask you to take a moment in your own life and decide that even if your children are well, you won't rest until every child in the state of Washington is well. Every child in King County is well. Every child around this country is well. You won't rest. There's a song that says, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. And I'll tell you just a tidbit of why this is so vitally important. We have come to realize that two of the most important factors to tell you how a young person will fare as an adult are, one, whether or not they get a college education, and two, whether they have a stable, committed adult in their life as a mentor. And on the economic side of it, let me tell you something. There was a study, or actually it's not a study, it's U.S. Census data. Broke down annual earnings based on education level. No high school diploma, GED, average annual earning, $22,900. High school diploma or GED, average annual earning, $28,800. Some college but no degree, $34,500. Associate degree, $35,900. Bachelor's degree, $52,400. Master's degree, $63,800. Doctor's degree, $85,600. 50% of those kids won't have a high school diploma. So where does that put them on the earning potential, on the earning curve? We have a serious challenge in front of us. And it's about foster care, but it's also about poverty. Research has shown that young people raised in poverty are much more likely to drop out of high school, that they are 160 times more likely to give birth as teenagers. They are 60 times more likely to suffer from reportable child abuse and neglect. They're 46 more times likely to be placed in foster care, and they're 18 times more likely to die due to violence. We cannot afford to turn around. We can't afford to turn our backs. We need to become the drum majors for justice and righteousness and truth in 2005 and beyond. I'll end where I began. Dr. King was a man. Is there anybody here today who can say, I too am a man. I too am a woman? Here was a man with no doubts as to what his mission in life was, and no crippling fears that would hold him back from carrying out that mission. No man is free if he fears death, Dr. King told a crowd at a 1963 civil rights movement. But the minute you conquer the fear of death, at that moment, you are free. His friends urged him to take fewer risks, but he shrugged them off. He said, I cannot worry about my safety. I cannot live in fear. I have to function. If there is one fear that I have conquered, it is the fear of death. I submit to you that if a man has not discovered something that he would die for, that man is not fit to live. Dr. King was and still is a very inspiring figure for me. His life, his belief in the cause of justice was unwavering. He seemed utterly fearless, though he was hated by so many and threatened so often that death must have continually lingered in the back of his mind. That night before his assassination, he virtually admitted as much when he said, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountaintop. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land, and I may not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land. And he went on to say, I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man, because mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. This is the confidence that we must take into 2005. This is the confidence with which we must face the problems that our children are facing. This is the confidence that must become who each and every one of us are. I ask you simply to think that if every individual in this room and every individual who will watch this broadcast were to commit that I personally will change the life outcomes for one child every year of the next 13 years of my life, just one, where would we be? It's been 140 years since Reconstruction. What will the next 13 years bring? All God's children got a song. All God's children got a song. Sing with me.
Thank you so very, very much. We're going to complete our program with one of the most special parts of the day. For those of you who have remained, you will have a special treat. It's the Mckinney Scholar Award. The scholarship has a special significance in our community. Obviously, it is named to honor Reverend Dr. Samuel Barry Mckinney, Pastor Emeritus at Mount Zion Church. The scholarship was set up 7 years ago to honor the retirement of Dr. Mckinney from 40 years in the pulpit here at Mount Zion. And the Scholar Award is meant to educate and inspire a Mckinney scholar at the Seattle Community Colleges to success and leadership. To present the award, I have the honor of introducing the Reverend Samuel Barry Mckinney, and he will be joined by Dr. Mildred Olay, President of Seattle Central Community College, in presenting the 7th Annual Mckinney Scholar Award.
Thank you. I'm pleased to announce that Shamada Johnson is the recipient of the 7th Annual Mckinney Scholarship. She heard a song and sings the song of investing in higher education for herself. She is an outstanding student at Seattle Central Community College, and we are confident that she will achieve success in her educational and career goals. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Shamada is working towards her Associate of Arts degree in Social and Human Services, and she plans to transfer to Tennessee State University and complete her bachelor's degree. Her career goal is to work with people who are struggling to overcome drug dependencies. Shamada has an aunt and godmother and other relatives with her here today as support, and they're right on the front pew giving her all that support. Shamada has already impressed members of the community with her community service work. Not only does she volunteer with the Friday Family Night program sponsored by the Neighborhood House, she also recruits other students to join her in that volunteer work. At Seattle Central, she takes part in the Black Student Union and the African American Dance Team. One of Shamada's faculty members describes her in this way: she is one of the most gifted and talented students that I have encountered. So that says a lot. Our congratulations to Shamada Johnson.
It is an honor and a privilege to present this scholarship to Shamada Johnson. You have earned it, and now we pray that you will use it not only to further your own education, which I understand you've had to do some outside work and other things to achieve your goal, but you will be not only an inspiration to others, but you will point the way to a better and more excellent way, a better life for everybody. Because of this award, our community is better. We are better, and we know your leadership. We shall all be healed, and we'll have a song to sing. Whether we can sing it or not, we'll try it.
In a moment, we'll conclude our program by singing We Shall Overcome, led by Reverend Samuel Barry Mckinney. Yay! But first, I'd like to leave you with some special verse from the oratorio Montage for Martin. Some of you may have attended this program on Sunday at Benaroya Hall with Yolanda King, and you'll remember these words. We Shall Overcome is an anthem of the world. The dreamer may be gone, but the dream is not dead. We shall overcome someday. Reverend McKinney?
Let us all stand and join hands together. Reach across the aisle. Sing it from the depths of your heart. When we say someday, we also mean today and right now. We shall